Hey, this is Alan from Game Grooves, and I'm here with something a little bit different. Today, I just want to talk about a question that's been on my mind for the past couple weeks, which is why do we love video game music? And in this case, I'm going to be talking about why I love video game music. And of course, if you feel like commenting on this video or on this article and sharing why you love video game music, I would be more than happy to hear it. So, um, we're going to have to do a bit of a personal history lesson. There is a point to this, though, so try and stick around. Just be patient, and we'll get to why I love video game music. So, it's fair to say that I've always enjoyed music. However, like all things, my taste as far as music goes didn't really start shaping until my teenage years, right? Up until that point, I was mainly listening to the music that my parents, like specifically my dad. He was big into like the Beatles and 60s pop rock and whatever. Around the time that I entered middle school, high school, middle school really, I started finding myself wanting to listen to what I would consider more aggressive music. Um, and it started out, believe it or not, I remember the very first CD that I bought was the OC Supertones, the Supertones Strike Back. That's right, a Christian rock band. I grew up in a pretty, I would say, pretty religious family, so Christian rock was what I started with. And from there, I found myself gravitating towards metal. I remember buying a band called Zayo, which was a Christian heavy metal band. That was like the heaviest thing I'd ever heard, and there was something about metal that really spoke to me. There was a lot of raw power and authenticity to it. And from there, I got into non-Christian bands like Slipknot. I had a big Slipknot phase in high school. But anyways, the point is, in high school, this is where I really started to form like a network of friends that all listened to the same kind of music. We would share bands. We would debate which band was better. I remember so many heated conversations between a friend of mine and myself about whether Slipknot was better or whether Underoath was better. You know, teenagers. And it was just a fun time to be into that scene. I remember going to local shows. I had a couple friends that were in an emo band. So emo, screamo was definitely a phase that I went through and bands that I really enjoyed. And then I got to college. So obviously my taste changed and my peers changed. And in college, I had some friends that were introducing me to all kinds of music. One band that was really pivotal for me was the Cat Empire. It was a band that it's a band that's from Australia, and they do just kind of a mishmash of everything. It's kind of I wouldn't call it a fusion band, but they do kind of incorporate world and jazz and hip hop and just everything. They're a really good band. Their first self-titled album is still one of my favorite albums of all time. So definitely check out the Cat Empire self-titled album. And of course, I still listened to a lot of metal, got into folk metal, had a big folk metal phase in college. But once I left college, right, that peer group changed. I still had a couple friends at my first job that enjoyed the same kind of music I did, but for the most part, we weren't really sharing music. And more importantly, I guess that the needs or the musical, what do I call it, context changed, right? Rather than having music to hang out and listen with friends, I had music as kind of a way of keeping me sane for my first job as a technical writer, where I was literally copying and pasting data from Excel sheets into a Word document, 5 days a week. And it was really monotonous work, as you can imagine. So around this time, I realized, hey, there are like entire video game soundtracks on YouTube. And I like video game music. Why don't I try listening to video game music while I work to make this tedious effort less tedious? Sure enough, video game music really helped me because it kind of, I think there are studies about this, and I don't have any links. I've just read a few articles about how video game music can kind of help you focus on certain tasks without making it monotonous. So I found myself listening to soundtracks, lots of soundtracks, everything from, Okami or whatever, however you pronounce that game, I never get it right, to, Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2. I actually like the 1 soundtrack better, but that's neither here nor there. So, anyways, that's where I started really listening to video game music. I will say this though, I forgot to mention this. I have, I specifically remember this isn't the first time that I was very heavily into video game music. I burned a CD of the Sonic Adventure 2 soundtrack, and I would annoy the ever living crap out of my friends, my high school friends, driving around and listening to the Sonic Adventure 2 soundtrack. So I had been into video game music previously, but now the context changed. It was no longer I'm listening to music in the car with my friends, just driving around doing nothing. It's I'm stuck at work. I don't necessarily want to be here. I need some kind of escape, and there was video game music. So from there, I don't know really how this all came about. This would be the time period that I really got into video game covers as well. I realized that there's a huge community. Well, first I realized there was a few people making video game covers, like Jam2995. I was familiar with Ro Panaganti, who back then was known as Swiggles 1987. And just, I'd always wanted to, I guess, form my own little niche community online. Mainly because I had helped a friend of mine create his own niche little gaming community. And when we parted ways, there was kind of like still this desire to create my own little community, create my own little place to share things, I guess. So the idea for GameLark was originally just to feature playlists of cover artists, because I thought, well, hey, wouldn't this be cool if I were to just gather up some of my favorite covers, and then share them with people. And through that process, I came to know a lot of people in the video game music community. And I never really thought about it too much, about why I got so heavily involved and invested in the video game community. But today, as I sit here talking to my computer, I think I understand why. As I said, the context changed for listening to music and sharing music. Now, I still have that strong desire to discover new music, and I still have that strong desire to share it with people, but it's really difficult when there's no one to share it with. I have a few friends, close friends that share my musical tastes, but I don't see them on a daily basis like you do when you're in high school or in college, right? So now, with the video game music community, I have a community of people that have somewhat similar tastes as I do, but more importantly, a place where I can share music, can discuss music, and especially video game soundtracks. And so the video game music community kind of filled that need in my life to have a community. And of course, it's a growing community. It's an international community. And then, of course, getting involved in projects with GameLark and then with Game Grooves, even, album producing, I became hooked, right? And then I felt really invested. So, of course, that's not discussing specifically video game music itself, more my relationship with it. And today, of course, I'm still helping to produce albums. I'm still doing what I can to kind of, I don't know. I don't really know what I do within the community. I'm just here. And, as far as video game music itself, why do I love video game music compared to other things? Well, I mentioned that, if I find a new band, say I find a new band, what is that one band? Doesn't matter. Say I find a new band, if I can't share it and discuss it, it's not nearly as much fun, right? So if I find a new video game cover artist or a new video game soundtrack, now I have a community where I can discuss it. And of course, video game music is different from other types of music for so many different reasons. I think another thing that I've realized recently, and I'm sorry if this is going on for a long time, but another thing that I've come to realize is that our emotional attachments to music have so much to do with context as well. There are specific albums and specific artists that when I listen to that music, it brings to mind a specific event or a specific time in my life, right? And with video game music, we are creating these special moments when we're playing a game, when we're living in those worlds, or when we're living through those particular moments, whether that's the start screen or the overworld theme from Zelda or whatever. And these are emotional moments for us because we're listening to the music and we're doing an action, which is playing a video game. So there's like this bond that forms even more than just listening to you know, an artist on, say, Bandcamp or something, and the context for that would be totally different. It's just like, oh, I like this band. Okay, I just found them and I like the music, and then I don't know. Sometimes I'll have bands that resonate with me really strongly, and then I'll feel compelled to share their music even to the VGM community if it's non-VGM. Johnny Booth comes to mind. That's a band I really, really fell in love with, I think, a year or two ago. In any case, those are the two big reasons I think video game music means so much to me, why I love video game music. One being that there's this community where I can share the things that I love with a lot of different people. And two, video game music creates an emotional resonance because of the form, because of the medium, because of all these great memories. Like Celeste, another perfect game. Celeste is really special to me for so many reasons, and this is where it's going to get too real probably. But I'll share this story because I think it's important. So, actually, a friend of mine pressured me into buying Celeste. I never thought I would enjoy the game, and it would be Mr. David from Mariachi MES. He pushed and pushed and pushed me to buy this game. I bought the game. I loved it. I overcame my fear of hard games by playing it because I've died, countless times playing that game. In any case, the soundtrack was so special. The soundtrack by Lena. And it's a game that tackles really heavy themes like anxiety and depression and self-worth and all this other stuff. And I just remember there was a point in my life where I had just started a new job and it was not going well. I was kind of worried I was going to lose my job because I was not in a good state emotionally or mentally speaking. That's as far as I want to say it. And I was like to the point where I was like holding back tears at work, which is not a good thing. Anyways, I put on the Celeste soundtrack, and I remember it really kind of helped me get through a couple very, very, very difficult days at the beginning of that job, because it kind of gave me that, I don't know, I connected with those moments in the game where I felt like everything was kind of hopeless and I couldn't beat a specific level, and it's like that soundtrack kind of became the soundtrack to my life in that particular moment where things were just feeling overwhelming, and I just felt like there was no escape. Fortunately, I'm happy to report I don't feel that way anymore, either with my job or with my life in general. But that speaks to the power of video games and video game music. So I felt like sharing those things with you in this video so that you can understand a little bit more about why do I spend so much time talking about video game music, sharing video game music, loving video game music. And of course, I would love to hear from all of you. How did you get into video game music? Are you a cover artist? Are you just a fan? What are your aspirations? Do you want to be a composer? Do you want to be a cover artist? Do you want to, I don't know, whatever it is. So feel free to share. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.